So following the news a couple of weeks ago of Microsoft's buyout of Activision, we've got yet another purchase in the gaming industry, this time with PlayStation and their acquisition of Halo creators Bungie for about $3 to $4 billion. Now, it would have felt quite hypocritical for me to make a video on Microsoft and Activision's buyout without at least bringing this one up. So I thought we'd make a video discussing what this means, why they're doing it, and ultimately why it doesn't really matter as much in the large scheme of things. There is still a little bit of an issue I have with this, but not with this specifically, just more the direction of gaming and where it's going. But I thought we should at least bring up the fact that in a week I've made a video about one acquisition from Microsoft's side, that PlayStation making an acquisition, which is still relatively big. We see in price it's not anywhere near the same levels of the Activision one or even the Bethesda one. It's lower than that, but Bungie are quite a big studio. They made, obviously, as I said, the Halo games. They made Destiny 2, obviously, is what they've got out at the moment. So it's quite a major studio still, so it's still worth bringing up and discussing. Now, when this news first came out on social media, people were grabbed by it quite a bit, certainly grabbed by headlines. I don't think everyone was reading articles attached to it and whatnot. We're going to look at the PlayStation blog, which sums it up pretty perfectly, but headlines obviously are there to attract clicks and whatnot and attract attention, and people were just seeing PlayStation bought out Bungie's joining PlayStation, and people just immediately assumed that, for one thing, this was a retaliation for buying out Activision, for Microsoft buying out Activision. It obviously isn't. I mean, these things take forever to go through, and that was a couple of weeks ago. So it's not. The only thing that might have changed is the ordering of the wording on the PlayStation blog, as we'll go over soon in a minute. The first one of the first sentences makes it clear that Bungie remain independent and a multi-platform studio. Maybe that's probably as far as it went in terms of references to the Microsoft Activision buyout. Just a little shove in the direction of Microsoft to say, look, we're keeping these multi-platform. Maybe you should too. But obviously that's probably not going to happen. But there really wasn't any sort of connection between the two. These things take forever. A lot of people probably attach to the fact that PlayStation buying out Bungie, who created Halo, which is Microsoft's biggest franchise, and maybe that was connected. Obviously, we've got as I mentioned in my Microsoft video, we got the weirdness of Crash Bandicoot, the owners of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, which were staples of PlayStation originally, being owned by Microsoft, but we now got the Halo creators owned by PlayStation. So it's a bit of a weird world. If you said that in 2009, that Bungie would be a PlayStation studio and Crash and Spyro would potentially be Xbox exclusives, I don't think many people would have believed you. So to the article in the PlayStation blog, I'd recommend reading this one because it obviously sums it up best. Today I'm happy to announce Bungie will be joining the PlayStation family. This is obviously from the point of view of Jim Ryan, President and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. First off, I want to be very clear to the community that Bungie will remain an independent and multi-platform studio and publisher. Now that's what I said earlier, that's the first bit that really jumps out when you actually read into detail. They're making it very clear that Bungie aren't really changing too much. They're still going to be doing what they're doing. And we'll discuss why they're doing that in a bit, but they're not just buying out Bungie and going to block off, like if there was, say, Destiny 3. I don't think there would be plans for a Destiny 3 at the moment, because Destiny 2's actually got a bit of life in it, which surprised me. I haven't played Destiny for quite a few years, either of them. So, but they're not going to just bring them in and block off other platforms. So that pops out immediately. As such, we believe it makes sense for it to sit alongside the PlayStation Studios organisation, and we are incredibly excited about the opportunities for synergies and collaborations between these two world-class groups. I've spent a lot of time with Pete Parsons, Jason Jones and the Bungie management team to develop the right relationships where they will be fully backed and supported by Sony Interactive Entertainment and enabled to do what they do best, build incredible worlds and captivate millions of people. Now, this is the thing that I think that Sony are doing this, or PlayStation are doing this, to work with Bungie in establishing a process for multiplayer games across their studios. Now, there's been no secret made about the fact that Sony sort of want to go they want to get some exclusivities that are more multiplayer focused, because obviously PlayStation exclusives are known for being these big single player experiences, not really multiplayer as such. I can remember Last of Us having a multiplayer mode, which was actually quite good. I felt it was underrated, but generally their games are not multiplayer focused. They are single player stories. They're made to be these really deep, grounded out stories for players to get into, not necessarily multiplayer. And they want to go into a multiplayer. I imagine with the fact that with the potential for Call of Duty not to be on their platforms, it's even more stepped up now that they need a multiplayer game or they need a first-person shooter, for example, and to possibly rival and give people on PlayStation something to sort of soften the blow and get in that gap. Call of Duty is an easy to dislike franchise, so if they get the right people and they get the right technologies in, it wouldn't be difficult to make a first-person shooter multiplayer experience that can rival, well, not rival, but can at least sort of put pressure on Call of Duty, Battlefield, the likes of those. The PlayStation blog goes to have a few quotes from Herman Holst, the head of PlayStation Studios, and then Pete Parsons, the CEO of Bungie. I'll leave those on screen so you can read them. But they make very clear that it's almost the technology and the potential to share their ideas is more the reason for this than simply having a studio and having them make games for PlayStation. You can, as Herman Haas tells, he says, Bungie makes games with outstanding technology that are enormously fun to play. They also have an unmatched dedication to the communities that play their games. And everyone at PlayStation and PlayStation Studios will be excited about what we can share and learn from them. So whoever is making multiplayer games are probably going to have a lot of input or suggestions from Bungie and what Bungie do in terms of making a massive multiplayer experience and having a dedication to communities, because obviously that is important in multiplayer games now. You need to, for games like Destiny 2 to still be relatively relevant years after they release, you need to have a plan dealing with communities and providing content to keep people interested. Otherwise, your game dies like a lead balloon. I mean, just look at Battlefield 2042 at the moment, which we're going to have a video on soon discussing everything that went tits up with that one. But without any real plan, it falls apart quite quickly. And I think if Sony are going to go into the multiplayer experience, they want to do it perfectly. They want to do it the best they can right off the bat. And by using Bungie, they can get a head start in doing that. It's also referenced in, if we change this to now what Pete Parsons says, it makes quite clear creative freedom at one point, that essentially they wanted to keep their creative freedom. And you gotta say fair play to them. I imagine they wanted a buyout. They wanted someone bigger to take them on a little bit further, but they have clearly been desperate to continue with their independence and doing what they want to do. So that's what they mean by their main multi-platform. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. They're not necessarily going to be like Insomniac or all the others that Sony have bought recently. Sony have more been buying smaller developers and startups in a way. But this bigger acquisition of Bungie will not necessarily lead to anything like what we're seeing with them. It's very much that Bungie will continue doing what they're doing, and Sony will just I imagine Sony will provide extra support. There'll be extra resources for Bungie. Obviously, having the PlayStation sort of brand shoved on all their games will probably help a little bit. But ultimately, it's more for PlayStation Studios to be able to talk with Bungie, share information that they have. Maybe Bungie will, want assistance on making a single player experience. Not that they haven't done that before, but you never know. It might go two ways. But the predominant thing here is that Bungie have a lot of talent in the multiplayer industry, and I think that this is why Sony have done this. Now, to conclude, this is obviously a lot different to the Microsoft Activision buyout. Obviously, it's nowhere near as stark. It's nowhere near as almost threatening to the opposite platform, because it's been pointed out immediately that games remain multi-platform. Obviously, things change. You never know. It might happen. But as of right now, it just looks like this is an opportunity for one big-ish developer to attach itself to a major, hardware provider in PlayStation, and to come together and share ideas that they have to better themselves. This isn't the same as the just buying them out, bring them all into their concoction of developers and making PlayStation exclusives. That's not the deal here. So it's not as concerning as the Microsoft buyout, but there is a little bit of me that is hoping that this won't continue as fast. It obviously will. It's been going on for a while now, and likes of Microsoft and PlayStation have been buying out studios forever, but I do hope that we still have some independence, because that's if everything's sort of on a side, it kind of splits everything down the middle, and it's not ideal for the consumers, again, as I said in the Microsoft video. So hopefully we don't go down that route too much, but other than that, this is just it's minor. It's just a headline grabber that is Bungie, and we'll see what happens with it, and hopefully that we'll get some great games on the back of it from Bungie, and some great games from PlayStation Studios off the back of their technology. So that's all we want, really, isn't it? Good games. That's all we need. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you have any thoughts, leave a comment below. If you liked what you heard, subscribe. Check out the Microsoft video as well. That was my first video a couple of days ago. More discussing the possibility of monopolies in video games, but check that out as well. And yeah, as I say, if you enjoyed what you heard, stick around and subscribe, because we'll have more videos like this in the future. As I said, Battlefield is one coming up. I've got plenty planned, so stick around for anyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.